Bequem, billig im Betrieb und leicht zu parken ist die Isetta mit dem Gütezeichen BMW.
From 1955 to 1962, BMW would pull themselves back from the brink of bankruptcy with something called the Isetta. It was a vehicle design license from Isetta, an Italian refrigerator manufacturer. The first versions rocked a 12-horsepower, 4-stroke single-cylinder engine and would go on to become a cult classic, reaching over 161,000 units during production. Then, everybody just forgot about it. Fast forward nearly 70 years, and the Isetta is back. Sort of. It's now called the Microlino, and while it may spark memories of the Isetta, it most certainly is not. It's actually built by Swiss-born Micro, the same company that makes your kids kick scooters. Well, we got our hands on the European bubble car, so let's see what's in store. The Microlino isn't perfect, but then again, what is? Like it or not, there is a place among the masses for this thing, and that's precisely what Micro is banking on. First off, this EV is not available in the US, but over in Europe, you can drive a Microlino with an L6E moped license or better. That's because it classifies as a quadricycle. Yes, a quadricycle, due to its 16.7 horsepower motor that spits out 65 pound-feet of torque and is limited to a top speed of 56 miles per hour. For a two-seater built out of steel and aluminum, weighing a tad under 1,100 pounds, it's enough power to get you up a small hill with no problem. Just don't make that a mountain, okay? It comes with your choice of battery power, the maximum being 15 kilowatts or a peak of 142 miles. But there are just 2 seats inside, and while they may seem like a downside, I find that it fits well into the whole learner category. The way you get into this car, you push a button, you wait for it to do its thing, you step in, you look around if you need to, and then you just tuck in. One feature that may be seen as a plus side for some and a downside for others is the seating. Because it shares a bench, if you're the driver and you want to move forward or backward, you'll also move your passenger. Be aware of that. From a driver's perspective, you'll have to get used to the lack of a rear view mirror, because as far as visibility goes, only the side mirrors and the Microlino's teardrop shape reveal what's behind it. We got nice, clear, large windows, LED integrated headlight. Right behind that, we have integrated rear view mirror. At the rear, we have a rather small window, and that's what the side windows really help cover, your blind spots. Also, this nice flush trunk, LED parking and braking strip, and that's literally it. And my favorite little trick, this. It's simple, but it hides the wheel, gives it a nice little unique look that you probably won't find anywhere else except for on custom cars. Windows, manual. Sunroof, also manual, but also plastic. And this is your charge port. Push, opens, and yes, once again, plastic. Everything's manual. It closed. This time. Every day, 10 pieces are built by hand in the same factory that makes components for Aston Martin and McLaren. However, consider that this is the second iteration of the Microlino, and since we started exploring the CV, Micro has bumped up production. There's a bit of a delay when shifting into drive, neutral, or reverse, and you really need to engage the brakes before that shift actually happens. Regarding speed, let's face it, 56 miles per hour isn't very fast, but how much speed do you really need in a city, especially if the driver is a newbie? This ties in together with the fact that there are no airbags or major safety options, just the seatbelt and the engineering that went into the chassis and body. Since minimalism is key, we have a digital dash cluster, an aluminum steering wheel wrapped in fall leather with hand stitches. You have your turn signals here, windshield wipers here, you got a little honk here, and your gear selection right here. Very BMW. As for a couple knickknacks you need to know about, this is a factory installed smart device holder. Here you have a couple of USB ports and charging cables for just about anything from an iPhone to a Samsung. This is your sound system. We'll talk about that a little later. And you have yourself some elastic cup holders, a little bit of storage here in the doors and sides, and that is literally it. Microlino's website mentions that the bubble car is endowed with a go-kart feeling, but from a performance perspective, meh. Oh, and that electric kick we look for? It's there and not there. But the optional sport mode helps in making the Microlino feel like a true EV in its own way. It's also pretty loud for an EV, and the lack of noise isolation makes it not so whisper quiet. The range we got out of 2 batteries was more than enough for 2 people to drive around town, get a feel for the Microlino, sit in traffic, stuff the trunk full of camera gear, and even film this video. But there's a catch. There is no light. No light. We started this journey with a 98% charge, and when I took it back to Microlino, there was still 35% left on the battery. In all, we burned up 40 miles on the trip, so pretty dang close to the manufacturer projected consumption. Now coming back to that speaker that I talked about, it says Micro on it, both sides, which means they clearly designed it for the car, but they didn't design the car for the speaker. So when you put it in here, it won't fit. It'll keep moving, it doesn't matter how you turn it, how you position it, it's just not made for it. Shame, really. If you want to refill your windshield wiper fluid, you'll have to do it from inside your car and not outside. Check out the suspension. It won't turn on if you don't push the brake. Apparently it won't turn on even if you do push the brake. So, you've gotten into your Microlino. Now you want to start it and drive around town. What do you have to do? First of all, there's a series of steps. The first is hold the brake pressed. Put the key in the ignition and turn it. You'll have to wait a little bit. You'll hear some pops, some clicks, and typically it'll turn on. Keep waiting, keep waiting. There it is. It took about 5 seconds. Finally, I have to point out that this thing is an attention magnet. No matter where we were with the Microlino, everybody turned their heads. Some pointed, some laughed, some took photos, and others were completely turned off by its looks. What do you do when you want to get out? Well, there's a button, but you really have to look for it. You gotta search for it from one side to the other, push whatever you find, and eventually it'll work. Now, the suspension as it may be, one of the benefits of this little tiny car is its turning radius, and the fact that you have no hood whatsoever. Now here's the tricky part. If you want to get out and you're too close to the car in front, you won't be able to. So you will need to back up just a little bit. Ooh. They just ran away from it, man, I swear. Now that you've seen the Microlino in its natural habitat, here's how we feel about it. So, how much is all this fun going to cost you? It all depends on the model you go for and the performance package you choose. Better yet, afford, because this thing is not cheap. The light or base model has a range of 59 miles, top speed of 28 miles per hour, and starts at 19,000 euro, the equivalent of around 20,600 bucks. It's a price tag that a lot of people's hearts skipped a beat over. The model and trim option we tested, the Competizione, starts at 23,000 euro, or the equivalent of $25,000. The real question is, are you sold? Most people weren't. It's a vehicle designed for daily biddings like going to school, meeting up with friends over lunch, carrying some groceries, or a travel bag. So it's going to do just fine in all those scenarios. And do you know why? Because the bubble car is back.